chirp.
Well, hey everyone. Thank you for joining my talk today. I am Marco, and I've been teaching for, is this like maybe 14 years now? I think I started in 2009-ish, so we're getting up there. And I feel like this chat, some of you at least may know I have a YouTube channel. I do a lot of teaching about all kinds of art aspects, from color to drawing to whatever. I have a lot of plein air videos on my YouTube channel. My goal with this chat is to not be totally repetitive with anything I've already have on YouTube, because it's free. You guys can go watch it anytime. But I do, obviously, some things will overlap, but I want to share some stuff that I have more recently discovered that I think is more and more relevant the more I teach, and the more students and even like all ranges of students that I see and talk to, things that will help you the most when it comes to plein air painting. Okay. The thing about plein air painting, oh, I didn't start my timer. Oh yeah, I did. Sorry. The thing about plein air painting is, I swear it is, speaking personally, it's the most beneficial thing I've done for my art life. It's the thing that turned me into a professional. And I mean that, that's not an exaggeration. I went from, flailing a little bit with color to understanding color thanks to plein air painting. And I think the reason I can attribute that to is that with plein air, it's right in front of your eyes. It's not plein air, for those who may not know, means painting directly from life. Photos don't count. It's from life. It has to be from life because you are the filter. If you paint from a photo, that's great. Photo studies are great. I've done a million of them. But the camera has pre-filtered many things for you. Everyone here, I'm sure, has seen a beautiful scene, pulled out their phone and went click, and then that does not capture anything that I just saw. That's why you have to be there, and you have to paint. And your eyes and brain are the only filter between the subject and the art. If I had to boil it down to one reason, that's why plein air is so amazing for your growth. Now, plein air painting is not friendly to us introverted people, of which I am one. You may not think that if you're watching my YouTube videos. I'm all maybe bombastic on the videos, but I like to. I was in my hotel last night, didn't want to go out, so that I'm one of you. The thing about plein air is, it encourages people to watch you. I do not like this. The problem with, I've grown used to it now. And when I'm at LightBox, you guys we're all family. This is a different place. But when you're out in the real world and you're setting up and you're doing a painting and you're setting up with a big tripod with your easel and you're doing this, people stop and watch you. And when people stop and watch you, they think you're doing performance art. They want to see oh, look at this master artist, and look at this masterpiece that's developing instantly. But painting's not like that. We all know that, right? And people find all kinds of creative ways to watch you. I was going to kill that kid. No, I was joking. He was actually cool. And he was the only one watching me at that point. But he foiled me. I thought I had a nice wall behind me, and he climbed right up there. The problem with people watching you is it puts pressure on you to do something with the picture that you might not be ready for, meaning you might not know what the problems are that you're solving, but at least for me, and I'm sure people can relate, when people are watching you, you want to give something back to them. You want to perform in a way. You want the work to look good so they get something, which means the feedback shines favorably on you and you feel good. And this always leads to kind of disaster. So I used to set up like this. I used to set up, that's me, this is a 15-year-old photograph. I used to set up with a big old pochade box, and it's a cool product that I had there. I still have it at home. I never use it anymore. But I had a big tripod. I had an umbrella. Guys, one thing, you do not need an umbrella. First of all, any gust of wind, that whole thing's going over. And that happened to me many times. But the umbrella is the sign of someone who doesn't know what they're doing. Because if you think that your art is going to be influenced in a positive way by having a bit of shade on your canvas, probably you have other fundamental issues to solve before the umbrella can come in. So again, that was in my early days. I don't even have that umbrella anymore. Ditched the umbrella. But the thing also with a big setup, I got, these are photos. I used to be in a little plein air group at work. Again, this is back in 2007-ish. We used to paint outdoors. There's my buddy Alexi. We used to set up. And the whole thing about having a big setup is you have to set it up. Not only have to set it up, you got to carry it out with you. It's heavy. You can see this big red bag. The common pose. I did this pose more than I painted. Stooping over, trying to, Yeah, trying to pull stuff out of that bag. The tripod was so big it stuck out of the bag, which made it a nightmare to travel with. And you spend most of your time setting up. And also what that does to you mentally is it almost makes you think like, oh, like I'm spending all this time to haul the bag out, set it up, which, time is costly. Your time is costly. And it puts you in a mental spot like, well, if I just went through all this effort to set up, I better paint something good. I better have a good scene to paint. Like, is that worth my time? Is that worth my time? I better do something good. And this is problematic because it stops you from painting. It introduces a block that you can get over. I mean, it's not hard to get over it, but it's a block nonetheless. My life, there's more photos. I'll scroll through these. Obviously, and then you accrue a ton of paintings. Those all went in a fire, by the way. Those are gone now, off this earth. You accrue a ton of material because you're going to be, if you have a big setup, you might be painting on canvas or board, and that's, I don't know, maybe a couple of years of stuff, and you need storage. So my painting life changed. Oh yeah. Oh, can we just comment on how much younger and more in shape I am here? Look at this. Yeah. Anyway, this is just a fast forward thing, just the constant setup. And I got so tired of that because I found myself not painting because I didn't want to have to go through all this. So and you find all kinds of creative ways to sit there with your big easel. So my life changed when two things changed it. Let me just click out here. I have to go back to this folder. My life changed, my painting life changed, when I learned to pare down my setup, but for a specific reason. Richard Schmid said something in one of his DVDs that I own that was one of the things that changed my painting life. Richard Schmid said, the late Richard Schmid, one of my biggest inspirations, said when he's outside plein air painting, he's not an artist, he's a trapper, trapping animals, except in painting. You're trapping colors, you're trapping compositions, you're trapping information. You're not trying to produce art. Now, this is a philosophy that some of you might be new to some of you might reject it. I'm just here to give you my opinion. I made that switch in my brain where when I'm out there plein air painting, I am trying to get information from the world into my brain. That information can be the tiniest thing. It's like a sliver of a scene. It doesn't have to be a finished piece. The thing with trapping something, think of trapping a rabbit in the snow or something in the snowscape. You need to be quick. You need to have something that you can disguise. It has to act fast. You have to be able to react fast. The setup you use plays a huge role in the type of mentality you are going to go into the scene with. I started paring down my setup. Oh, and by the way, I said there's two kind of things that sort of changed me. The other thing was I went to a workshop with Scott Christensen, and Scott Christensen being another one of my biggest inspirations as a painter. This is an 11 by 14 canvas that I brought to Scott's workshop. It was out in Idaho, the beautiful Teton Mountains. And I was painting like 11 by 14, which is pretty sizable paintings, plein air paintings. And, Scott would walk around and talk to us and like paint over stuff and, give us attention as a teacher. And he saw what I was doing. He's like, what you need to do, Marco, is you got to take that canvas and split it into 4. And he drew the 4 outlines of those canvases. You can see kind of those burnt sienna outlines. Scott drew those. And he's like, you need to paint 4 scenes and not 1. And he's like, he basically just said, like, just try that. And that was the first canvas, that is 2008. That is the first canvas I tried that on. And that and Richard Schmid's advice, which came around the same time, transformed me because now I was able to get in and out of the scene very quickly, meaning I could like paint something in 20 minutes, 30 minutes, where before, good luck filling an 11 by 14 canvas. You'll be there for 2 hours. The light's moving, right? Plein air, one of the biggest challenges is the light is moving. And one of the things we're attracted to as artists is the quality of light. So it makes way more sense to be able to quickly get something down and get out of there. And then if you're quick, you can paint more, right? That's probably at least one day. I probably did more that day, but you could do 5 or 6 paintings when otherwise you might do just a few. So I'm just going to sit down here so I can show you some more canvases. I specifically, by the way, chose like older work. Not that I'm apologizing for it, but I want to show you like some of the development I went through when it comes to painting. These are all probably circa 2008, 2010. I would never have set up my big French easel to paint that pedal boat. I would never have done that. It would have been too costly. It would have been not been worth it as a subject for me to set that up. But once I got into the mentality of you're trapping information, I wanted to see if I could capture like a plastic material. And I liked the idea that it was kind of half in the water. Like there's a lake there, obviously it's kind of half in the water. I wanted to see if I could capture that. I'm not trying to sell that. No one's gonna buy it. No, I haven't even looked at it for 10 years until I was planning for this chat. I dug up these old images. You know, a canoe on the shore. These are things that are not going to be things that you would gravitate to if you have a huge setup, I think, because they're not epic scenery. So, you know, more of these are just, my family rented a kind of a row of cottages, and these are just shots of the cottage. Some of them better than others, right? That's the other thing with us artists. We typically don't like to fail, but the thing with plein air is like you are going to fail. I'm sure everyone in this room, I'm sure you've all tried plein air, and if you've tried plein air, you've probably failed at it, me included. Trust me, like a million times. You know, that's a garbage can in the top left. How many people would stop to paint a garbage can with a big pochade box setup? But if you're lean and you're painting small, suddenly the world opens up to you on a subject matter level. Okay, so I want to quickly show you guys. By the way, this chat has kind of two parts. This is part one where I'm kind of giving you an sort of a meta view of things, and then I'm going to dive into specific techniques and tricks and tips I want you guys to try. I want to show you just a few more of these. Again, these ones are, notice they're like individual pages. It's just a moleskin, and I'll hand this out. You guys can pass it around. This is 2011. It looks like these are dated. Not all of these are in this one. I have stacks of these at home. I just grabbed one on the way to the show. You know, you can see how big they are, and I'll pass some of these around. The thing that I would do is, you notice I would draw a frame within the page. That allowed me to, it was kind of a mental trick, really. It forced me to be even more contained, I guess, in the book. There's a tendency we have when we have a surface in front of us to fill the surface. So what I would do is I always do this. Even when I work digitally, I kind of, not always, but I draw myself a little frame within the frame, and I work in there. And of course, this also doubles as my journal, so I can kind of write on it as well. Very quick. So, you know, this is, you know, in the back you can't see it, but I'll hand this out. This is the morning light. I was going for a walk up this large hill in Arizona, and like the beautiful morning light was there, but I had my little knapsack thing around my shoulder, and I just quickly set it up. Here, I'll pass this around. You guys can just pass it. Some of the pages might be stuck. Don't worry about it. I spilled paint on it. It stuck all the pages together. Yeah, these are other examples of moleskin sketchbooks. And as you can see, like for example, see the Notre Dame there on the top right. That's, I think, a good example of like trapping information. I just picked one of the towers, right? It's not a subject matter that is grand. Notre Dame is grand, but I just picked a little subsection of it. And I wanted to capture in that specific one just the bounce light going on in shadows. That's what I mean by trapping information. I was trapping the bounce light, just the bounce light. And what's that, 2010, I think that trip was. And in 2010, I was just beginning to wrap my head around how to render bounce light in a convincing and illuminative way, if that's a word. And that painting really helped me. I remember really thinking I was solving some problems and mixing warm and cools. It's kind of messy, but that's okay. I feel like there's some information there that has stayed with me now, if that's 2010, has stayed with me for 14 years. A lot of these, I remember where I was, like I remember the ledge I was sitting on when I did that bottom right one, you know? I remember the precipice I was on for the bottom second one there. And they're all very fast. And the thing about moving fast, again, is you're either going to fail or succeed quickly. I remember listening to Andrew Stanton, writer, director at Pixar. He was talking about how to make Pixar movies. And he was like, the key thing with our process is you have to either fail or succeed fast, because then you know the direction you're going. If you are working on a big canvas and you're going away, you might not know if you're succeeding or failing for an hour. I need to know in 5 minutes, because then I can pivot. If I'm succeeding, I'm like, great, that's a wind in my sails, let's keep going. If I'm failing, now I have something to react to. I can either start again, or I can change course if the painting still allows. And that, again, is one of the huge benefits of working small. So a few more of these. I'll just go a bit quicker. What time are we at here? All right. We're doing good. That's actually last year at LightBox for the Colossal Characters event. And these are just, that's actually digital, but still very small. So you see, even digital, I kind of draw myself a little frame. I should use my mouse and not point. There we go. Yeah, there's an example of yet another one of my setups. It's a much smaller pochade box that strapped to my neck. I can't remember the product name, but I mean, I'm not here to promote products anyway, but it was a box that kind of strapped to your neck. You can see how big it is because there's my hand in frame. And I use painter's tape to draw myself out of frame, and which is, again, always nice because at the end you can peel off the tape and get a nice clean border. It's all in service of painting quickly. This one, okay, actually, so now I want to get into part 2 of this chat, actually, and then I'll come back to this. Okay. Part 2. Part 2 of this chat is kind of something that I have noticed is not taught very much. It has to do with composition, and it has to do with how you engage with your subject matter physically. And I'll try and boil it down right now very cleanly, and then I'll demonstrate it. Composition, which is the thing you're doing when you're making a picture, you're composing something on the page in your frame, right? Oh, you know what? Here's another sketchbook. You guys can pass this around too. This one has slightly larger pages, but still very small. I'll start. Where's the sketchbook now? Over there? Here, I'll start here. This one is half broken, so just be careful when you're turning it. Whoops. That's a bit later. I think 2015, 16, I think. They're not all winners, so be prepared. Okay, yeah. When you are painting a scene, you are composing a picture. It doesn't matter what you're painting, a character, a portrait, a landscape. It doesn't matter. You are composing a picture in the end. That picture, you can engage with your subject in 2 ways. The literal way, which is, what is it that I'm painting? Am I painting a portrait? That's my friend Susan. That's her. That's the literal thing. If you're painting a landscape, it's a Pasadena City Hall that I'm painting. That's the literal part of the picture. That's the easy part to understand. The much harder part to understand, and I swear it's kind of a secret that I think it's a secret because I just don't hear people talking about it that much. It's the abstract part. The abstract part of your composition is the shapes and values that make your subject that are completely divorced from what the subject is. And I'm going to show you what I mean right now. And I will say in no uncertain terms, if you can engage more with the abstract part of your subject, you will become a better painter. So let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to show you something here. We have another 25, 30 minutes to get into this. So this is part 2 of the lecture. Okay. Here we have a picture of nothing. In this picture, I can't control how you interact with it because, well, there's nothing there. Some of you might be looking, over here. Some of you might be looking over there. The second I do that, every one of you in this room looked at the box. Why? Well, it's contrast. It's not that there's something there. It's that there's something of high contrast. I just controlled everyone here. You all saw that instantly, probably around the same time, within milliseconds of each other. That one thing, I swear, I give the most critiques about. I look at people's work, including my work, all the time. And I was doing portfolio reviews yesterday, and I think I had 5 reviews, and every single time, one of my points was, I'm not quite sure what this picture is asking me to engage in the most. This is the most simple that it gets. You are looking at that box. At least you did right away. You can only veer away from that after you saw the box. If I do this, well, I've just drawn everyone down there. I just controlled everyone again. You can put it anywhere. There's no rules. There's no avoid the middle. That's not a thing. Put it in the middle if you want. The rule of thirds is just a guideline. Put the focal point, the thing you are talking about. If it's a sentence, the focal point is the thing you are talking about. The thing the painting is about. Put it anywhere on the page that you want. Doesn't matter. There's no rules. There's no right or wrong. It needs, though, to be the highest point of contrast because the eye is just a junkie for contrast. It's just the way our eyes work. We only want contrast at the start. And the start, when I say the start, I mean like the first 100 milliseconds when someone looks at your picture. It's the difference between, going back to people watching you plein air paint, pretend that I'm a onlooker and I'm watching someone paint. It's the difference between this or this. That's the ineffective one. This is when you have a clear focal point. Someone walks by. Oh, you can sense it when you're out there. When you're out there painting and someone of the general public comes up to you, you can tell. Oh, voice cracked. You can tell if your painting works because if you have a strong focal point, you will. If you're watching them, you can physically see it. They will react. They know where to look, and when the audience knows where to look, you've got them. And then it's a matter of what you do after that, and that's what we're going to get into right now. But just keep this in mind. Whenever you're painting, you have to have that single point. Now, it doesn't have to be a point like if you're painting like Pasadena City Hall or something. It doesn't have to be a single point like it's that window. It's an area. It's a focal area. When I teach my classes, I almost I kind of start my composition lectures with you've probably heard the term focal point. The term point is a bit unfortunate because it implies that it's a single kind of point. It's an area. The eye can take in our fovea in our eye. We can take in. I'm looking at the exit door. I can take in the door, the exit sign. It's an area. But if I'm looking at that door, I'm not taking in you guys because you're over there. I'd have to do this to see you, and I have to do that to see the door. But it's an area. So define in your head the area you want first. Now this is a problem because suddenly now you're asking the viewer to do too much too soon. Yeah, the viewer can understand this, but it's not going to get that visceral first 100 milliseconds reaction because you have asked them to look in 4 different places because you have 4 different equal contrasts. You have to control that first. Now, sometimes that means like cheating. If you are looking at a bit of lighting that, nature's not an artist. Nature's beautiful, but nature's not the artist. You are. If nature gives you a scene, if you're looking at a scene that has conflicting contrasts, you have to change it. You have to be the editor of the scene. So this is better. Obviously, these are abstract models that we'll get into. Slowly, I will morph this into actual paintings. Don't worry. This is better because we have a bunch of stuff. Just like in this room, there's a bunch of stuff going on. But we still have that singular highest contrast point. So this model works. There's not enough shapes yet, but as a delineation of contrast, this works. Yeah, okay. The other thing you want to do when you have a single focal point like that, a lot of people, and I notice this a lot with my students, there's a timidity to overlap things. People tend to want to, maybe it's people by nature are a bit too precious with what they're drawing and painting because, after all, you've spent all this hard work drawing and painting something, you're hesitant to mar it by overlapping it. But, and the result is this. The result is like a focal point, but the supporting areas, which is everything else, kind of like hovers around it. It's almost like there's a gravitational, like a magnetic opposition push to it that pushes things away from the focal point. You have to get used to doing this. Overlap your high contrast focal point with stuff. Now, there are different models to achieve this. I'll show you. Yeah, this kind of thing. Okay, so there are basically 2 models to do this. Let me go to this one first. One model is to put your small shapes, and I'm going to show you big, medium, small right after I say this. Put your small shapes, cluster them near your focal point, and have them be high contrast with your focal point. So if your focal point is like a big light shape, could be the light hitting a building, for example, over a dark thing. If your focal point has that contrast, in this case, light over dark, put your smaller shapes on top of it to a certain degree. Don't fully cover it, of course, but overlap it. That will even further draw the eye to the focal point because you have all these little buzzy little things of contrast. The other model is this, where you have your focal point kind of alone, but you put your small other shapes in the painting. Those other shapes just represent other things in your painting, right? Put them away from the focal point, but in a clearly designed way so that the viewer kind of subconsciously knows like, oh, the focal point is sitting alone and everything else is supporting around it. Or the model I just showed you, which is the opposite, where the focal point is obvious, but it's kind of further enhanced by all these small little shapes. Okay, it's time for me to draw something. So I'm going to go into Photoshop, and I'm going to give you a little primer for big, medium, small. Okay, I'm just going to put B, big, medium, small. we have a canvas. A canvas is only a certain size, right? You can only have a few big shapes. So I'm just going to draw this big shape. This represents the few big shapes you have on your canvas, okay? I'll just quickly color it in. Now, a medium-sized shape is by categorically smaller than a big shape. You can have more medium shapes in your picture. Now, this is not a math formula. I'm not saying for every one big shape you get 4 medium shapes. So don't take this literally on that level. It's just a ratio, a general ratio saying that you have a few big shapes, you have space for more medium shapes, and you're probably already ahead of me. Small shapes are small. You have room for many, many, many of them. And the thing about small shapes, you don't just have room for a few more small shapes. You have room for exponentially more, tons more small shapes. Small shapes are the thing that makes a painting interesting. Let me back up. Big and medium shapes are what makes a composition functional, meaning you can see what things are and where they go. That can be done with big and medium shapes. Small shapes provide the activity that make a composition interesting and engaging to the viewer. You need all three. You can't, I hesitate to say the word can't, but you probably can't do a picture that doesn't have small shapes that's engaging. It'll simply look like something, but it won't be engaging as a composition. Remember, we're talking abstract here. I don't care what the subject is. It could be anything. You need a separation of stuff like this to make it engaging. Now, I'll show you how this works, again, on an abstract level. Then I'll apply it to physical subject matter, and we are good for time. Okay, so let me canvas. Let me just fill it with white. Okay. I'm going to paint something, but it's going to be abstract, but as you'll see, it doesn't matter. I'm going to put a big shape in, okay? Here's a big shape. Now, quick tip. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. Let's take a quick drink of thing here. I've talked about this in a million different YouTube videos. Sorry. When you design shapes, they have to be streamlined. They have to be clean. They have to be, the image I use in one of my classes is, you have to be able to give your shapes to a child with scissors, don't do that in real life, and have them be able to cut it out. I'm serious. Have your shapes be cut outable by a child. That's how you know if your shapes are clean. There's no rules on how the shape goes. The shape can be a circle, a square, or whatever, whatever this is. It has to just be clean and in a way that is easily replicable. A non-artist should be able to draw your shapes. That's clean shape design, and clean shape design yields readable pictures. I'll show you an example. Let me just color this in, fill this in. I'll show you an example of how this shape could be bad if the shape were like too much of this, too much meandering. This is suddenly not a clean shape. First of all, a child would never be able to cut that out. And as a result, your viewer is not going to be able to visually digest it quickly. Remember, a painting, a drawing, painting, whatever you're doing in art, has thousands of shapes. You are asking the viewer to digest all those shapes in a very short time. You have a duty to be clean about it. You have to be able to make clean shapes. Again, there are no rules in art, but in the context of the art, kind of we do at LightBox. If LightBox was our category of art, this is a requirement. Your stuff will just be so much cleaner. Okay, so there's my big shape. Okay, let's put another big shape in here. Here's a big shape. Whoops. Here's a big shape. Fill it in. Obviously, shapes can be different values, right? Because the things we paint in real life are different values. Now, that's all I have room for. There's 3 shapes on the canvas, including the white background that I've left behind there. That's maybe the only big shapes I have room for in this scene. Okay, so, and note, like, is that interesting? No. There's no one here that is interested in that picture. But watch this. I'm going to make a new layer so we can see what progressively smaller shapes do on an engagement level. I'm going to add my medium shapes. So just bear with me. I was going to do this in slides, but I kind of wanted just to show you the physical process of it, because like there is a certain joy that I've learned to have in seeing the subject matter abstractly like this. I swear when I called it a secret earlier, I think it is kind of a secret because it's a secret weapon, I should say, because I'm not intimidated now by any subject because there is no physical subject anymore in my brain. It's all abstract shapes. And because of that, everything follows the same principles of composition. So it doesn't matter if I'm painting something that I've never painted before. I remember I was painting a scene full of horses. I'm like, I don't know horse anatomy. This is terrible. But when I thought of it this way, I could break those horses down into shapes of composition, and suddenly the painting turned out good. And I got there. So what I'm doing here is I am overlapping my bigger shapes. I should remember to put some over here. These are medium shapes, okay? These are my medium shapes. And I have more of these. Remember, I only had, what did I say, 3 big shapes? And I have, 6, 7 currently medium shapes. The thing about human vision is, think of it like we have X-ray vision. Everyone here still can see that this big shape is like this. Everyone can still identify that big shape, even though I have overlapped it. Remember when, just a few minutes ago, it was like you have to overlap your shapes? This is what I'm talking about. You have to overlap it to make your scenes interesting, to make them feel, in literal terms, it'll make your scenes look like they have more depth. In abstract terms, it creates something that the eye has to do a bit. The eye, meaning the eye has to resolve this shape. But again, we have X-ray vision. The eye loves to resolve things like that. Shapes that go in and out of other shapes, behind and in front of other shapes. You got to put things there. You got to put shapes in front and behind other shapes. Do not do the thing where you are, remember the magnet opposition pull I showed you, where shapes are kind of isolated around things? Don't do that. Make sure you're overlapping. In fact, this exercise I'm doing right now, I recommend all of you guys do it. Just do exactly like this. Grab a canvas, takes 5 minutes. Different values. Okay, so there's my medium shapes. Maybe this is another large shape, I don't know. Your shapes can have, slightly different sizes. Like every large shape does not have to be the same size. Every medium shape does not have to be the same size, and every small shape does not have to be the same size. But it's a categorical consideration. So I would say these are my medium shapes. Now, I feel like I've been too equal with the distributions. They're kind of like all hovering around there in an equal way. And this is why I wanted to do this in front of you guys live, just so no one takes for granted that there are still challenges in this. So I want to break up that monotony that I've created unintentionally by taking a second to think about adding variety. And here I am doing a presentation, so half my brain is on speaking to you guys. I just potentially made an error in this composition by making things too equal. One of the other things about composition is equality generally is bad because the audience can see it coming. The second you have things, equality, the same size of shape too many times, repetition in your negative shape. See how this spacing of negative shape is about the same as that spacing? The second you do that too many times, you are creating a situation where the audience is ahead of you. The audience can see it coming. Think of a movie, as an M. Night Shyamalan movie, The Sixth Sense. Very few people saw that ending coming, right? When you think of a movie with a twist ending, if the audience is ahead of the ending, if they can see it coming, it doesn't work. It's boring. Everyone's like, I saw that coming. Not interested, not engaged, they saw it coming. Your shapes are like a twist ending. If your viewer can see it coming, meaning if you're too repetitious, the viewer will know what's coming next because they can sense the repetition. So there's no surprises. I remember critiquing a student a few days ago. She had a fence in her painting, and the fence was made of the same shape. Now, fences are made like that, but unfortunately, fences are actually very difficult to paint because compositionally, they are a nightmare because it's the same shape and the same edge too many times. The audience is ahead of you because they can see it coming, and therefore they're not engaged. It's like a twist ending that you can predict. So be careful to vary. So how would I fix this issue that I've just pointed out? Well, how about if I just put another shape, right in here that modifies the negative space between fixed. That area is now solved. The audience is not going to see that coming because it's just such a little I've added enough intricacy to the spacings and things that it's no longer predictable. I forgot to put these small shapes on a layer. I only have 2 layers, but that's okay. I'll just go back and forth. Can you see, though, at this stage, I'm just going to spend another 2 minutes on this. Can you see how this little painting is getting kind of interesting. Like there's something about it that is engaging. That's what I mean when I say interesting. Obviously, it's abstract. No one cares what the subject matter physically is because it's nothing physical, it's abstract. But there is an engaging sense when you can have this distribution of shapes, specifically with attention to small shapes. Remember, small shapes you can have like exponentially more of them. If you can start doing that, you will find your compositions getting real interesting. Now, I promise I will show you how this translates to the literal physical world, because it's not useful just for me to deliver an abstract lecture. This has to play in real life too. But this, once again, as I just finish this out, thanks for bearing with me, this is what I think about when I am not only plein air painting, but any kind of painting, but especially plein air, because the thing with plein air, right, is your subject matter is a full 360-degree world that we live in. You can look everywhere and see everything and have all kinds of opportunities for shapes and subject matter. This is the way to boil things down into something that you can manage, is this abstract design. What is the abstract design? And this means you can, when I remember earlier I was saying like cheating your shapes, and when you're painting from life, pull something in. Like if you're painting here, pull some information from over there, bring it in. No one is going to fault you in any way for changing the scene. That's another thing that people are hesitant to do with plein air, I've noticed, is change the scene. When I was painting City Hall last year with at LightBox for the James Gurney's event, I didn't care where the windows were. I would put the windows in a place that looked good in my composition. I would be inspired by real life, like the way the building's architecture was. I'd be inspired by the general proportions maybe. But when it came to the lights and darks that I was putting in, they were heavily my own design based on this abstract principle of, delineating different sizes of shapes. Okay, let's just stop right about there. You can, as you do these exercises yourself, you will find a million ways to organize these shapes. But can you see the difference? Let me just turn off the layer. That is functional, meaning you can, if that were a literal subject matter, you can maybe tell what it is. But that is more engaging because the eye has more to do. But the focal thing, let's say that, the middle shape is kind of the focal point because it's like super high contrast. It's still there, right? I haven't overlapped it so much that it has gone away. It's still there. So you start with your focal point, which usually you can do with the bigger shapes, usually. And then when you put your medium and smaller shapes in, you are complementing it. You are putting them in such a way that, in this case, I've kind of crowded the focal point, but the focal point is still there. Or you can go the other way, where you put shapes around it. This is where it's up to you guys. Your homework is to explore the myriad of ways you can arrange your shapes. Okay, now I want to show you some ideas here. Okay, and let's go here. Okay, so here is maximize that. Here is a plein air painting I did, watercolor painting. It was, about 45 minutes long. The first thing I did was I needed to understand what my big shape pattern was. And there it is in black and white. By the way, color doesn't matter. And all this talk I'm doing here about shapes, color is not a factor in that. Color always boils down to a value, right? A light and dark value, light or dark value. My first consideration was this. There was like, see this slice of light kind of coming down, partially motivated. There's a big tree here, casting a shadow. It was like slicing the building diagonally. I really wanted that to be a kind of central point in my scene, flanked by these two darks. This gave me a general focal area, the sort of building area here. And there were two cars on the street. Actually, I think I might have invented the other car. I can't remember. But there were some cars parked there that kind of allowed me to, overlap some of these shapes. So in this case, I have big and a few medium shapes. So obviously these are big shapes in here. And see how the cars kind of created that little medium shape there. But it started, you can still see the DNA of the big shape underneath. That is the light sweeping through the road, created this big shape, which the cars kind of overlapped to create a bit of a medium shape. Then I started adding smaller shapes. And the smaller shapes, life will give you your shapes. Like the smaller shapes in this case, I was finding shadows in the building, like there were little awnings or little porches, patios, casting shadows. The windows, there were dark windows. There was all kinds of electronics, electrical devices, air conditioners, satellites, whatever. I invent these all the time, by the way, if they're not there on the roof that create all kinds of shapes. And I try and arrange them in a way that is, well, that in a way that is what I do in my abstract demo. In this abstract demo you just saw me do, I arrange my shapes in a way that I think is interesting to the viewer. I don't care how many windows the real building has. Like, that is not a thing I care about, because first of all, your viewer doesn't care. It's more about the composition. So I arranged my windows like that. This building had windows like that, but I put them where I wanted to put them. And it had patios like that, but I may have edited out a patio. I can't remember. This painting is about 7 years old now. And more shapes, more small shapes. Here's before, here's after, more small shapes. Now, some of these shapes are driven by real life. So look at the car right there. The windshield got a smaller shape of dark. That was there in real life. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to snag that. I'm going to trap that. That's a good little shape. Meaning, I think it looks good in that spot. Yeah, it makes it look more like a car, but I don't care about that. I care about the abstract design. But you kill two birds with one stone. You get a nice little shape in there, and it makes it look like a car. Cool. But how about all of those shapes? Those were not there in real life. Like, some of them were, but they were not in those specific spots. That's me, and they're all over the place, right? Look at the road, little darks, and the trees, little darks. Trees are your best friend, because you can invent all kinds of darks and little shapes, little sky holes of light. You put the shapes, or I put the shapes, where I thought they made for an engaging abstract design. So it's kind of a dance between what real life is giving you and what you can abstractify it into. In real life, let me go back to the actual painting here. In real life, there were those trees. Those trees were there. But you see how clean this diagonal was? Like this, see this diagonal shape? That was not there in real life. There was a shadow, but it wasn't that clean. I cleaned it up and made for those big shapes that I started with. That is very much my contribution to the scene. Now, you guys can't tell. You weren't there. You just accept it as a painting. But how many of us here, including me in my earlier days, would have been not timid, I guess, about redesigning that? You would maybe go for what is exactly there. I know this is true because when I critique a lot of student work and I see a painting of architecture, right? I can see adherence to, if the window has 4 panels, there are paintings that have 4 panels on the window. And I'm like, okay, like, you drew the window, but you're missing the bigger thing. You're missing the design. You're missing the composition abstract part of it. You looked at the window and took it just took it like that's how your window should be. But no, you are doing an abstract design first and foremost. Here's a plein air painting. That one actually might be in the book going around. I can't remember. It's just traffic from a bridge, right? But if you notice, it's not really traffic. Here's some close-ups. Like, those are not good cars. I can draw a car way better than that. But it's a shape composition. And this one is a great example because, not because it's a great painting, I think it works. But the thing that makes it a great example is that traffic is moving, right? There's cars moving. I have to pick where the cars go. So I could, even if I wanted to copy the cars, I could not because there's zipping by. So I put them in a place that I felt served an abstract design. And my abstract design was, you see this big shape of light cast by you see this big shape of light coming in? That it was a big shape that I started with. And when I first started this painting, it only existed in 3 or 4 big shapes. I had the sky, I had these trees, I had the big shadow on the road, and of course the light shape left behind by the shadow. I had those 4 shapes, 4 shapes on the canvas. Then I knew that my medium and small shapes would come by way of 2 things: shadows cast by the trees. See all these little tiny little shapes cast by the trees, and the cars, and shadows cast by the cars. I completely invented the latter. I completely invented the tree shadows. See these tree shadows here? Like, those trees were casting shadows. So like, I took that literal information from real life, but I abstractified them and put them into a design that I felt was pleasing. And that part cannot be taught. When I say that I felt was pleasing, I can't tell you what's pleasing. I can only show you this. I can show you the delineation of shapes. I can give you this chart. that's your raw material. What you do with it is completely up to you. And there's no right or wrong. That is your art. I can't tell you what to do there. I'm just hopefully showing you now. I'm bridging the gap to show you how it creates a physical subject matter. And yeah, the cars are simply little tiny shapes that are, hopefully clean. I remember I had a little flat brush that I basically, these are cars in the distance that we're looking at here. These were kind of created by single brush strokes, right? That is an abstract painting. That is no different than the thing I just did for you live, right? It's the same. That's what I mean when I say that you have to engage with your subject matter on the abstract level, because if you only were doing on the literal level, there's just no way you could even paint that, because the cars are moving, the information is not there staying still for you. This painting would not really be possible, or if it was, it probably wouldn't be an appealing design. You have to engage with that abstract part. So I have more. So here's an example, quick sketch. Again, trapping, right? Trapping. I really liked the contrast. There's just something about the scene I liked. Again, I can't tell you what it is. I just liked this. What's my design? It's this. It is, sorry, I should use my mouse. This is harkens back to the example from earlier in this talk where the focal point is clean, the silos. The silos are clean, meaning their shapes are kind of uninterrupted, and they are surrounded by the busy medium and small shapes. And you can see where I got that inspiration from real life, right? In real life, the silos are kind of uninterrupted, but you notice in real life, there are trees overlapping the silos. I took those out. Why? Because I wanted my silos to be even more uninterrupted than they were in real life. I could have put the trees in, but I felt like that was just the thing I wanted to go for on that day. I am changing nature, but still being inspired by it, right? That is what I'm thinking when I'm painting this. And by the way, I'm sorry, we're just not talking about color in this chat. I would need 2 more hours. I have tons. You guys, if you've seen my YouTube videos, I have tons on there. And by the way, if anyone wants to chat, we're not done yet, but if anyone wants to chat after this, and we almost are done, just find me. I'll be around. After this, I'm going to rush back to the Proco booth to catch Morgan Weisling. I don't have a table this year, but I did bring some books. These are collections of my early plein air stuff, similar to what you're seeing in those books. They're only like $5 each. I brought a few. I felt dirty just saying that, but I don't have a table this year. Let me show you guys a few more examples. Okay, this one here. It's not an interesting physical subject matter. It's just an awning and a window. But I bet you all are drawn to this awning, right? Why? Because it's the highest contrast. I did the same thing I did with the silos painting. That focal point sits more or less on its own. So it's that, right? Can you see how it corresponds? It's that. And I populated the scene around it with lower contrast, smaller shapes. So I use my big, medium, small, and contrast. It's simple, right? It's simple, but it requires of you a lateral shift in your thinking, because it's not about the awning. Like I physically drew the awning, but you're thinking this. You're thinking abstract design. This is what gets your picture, like when you look at a Craig Mullins painting or an artist you really like, Loish, whatever, Angela Sung, who was just here. You look at their paintings on Instagram, the thumbnails, and they just look so beautiful, but they're tiny. Like, what makes it look so beautiful? It's that. Artists are good at that. That's what makes a picture look pretty to you, to us. Let's go. Is no one warning me about time? I have 10 minutes. Let's see. Someone's going to warn me in just a second. Okay, so here's one that's not mine. This is David Curtis, amazing artist. Hopefully you can look at that and try and see it as the abstract design that it is. David, see all those tiny, sorry, I'm pointing with my finger. See all these tiny little small shapes? Those weren't there. I mean, I don't know, but those weren't there. He invented those. He's breaking up bigger shapes with smaller shapes. He has invented, I don't know this, but there's no way he is getting all of these shapes from life. He's inspired by life. I'm sure the scene really felt like this. David Curtis is an amazing artist. He is getting these, I would call these big/medium shapes. There's the shadows are kind of medium shapes. These big reflections are bigger shapes. He probably started with those, and then yeah, that's my 10-minute warning. And then he has broken it up with progressively smaller shapes. Also, the way he has designed the branches, right? That is an abstract design. It looks like a tree on a literal level, but trust me, your stuff will start looking literal as you work on your abstract. I'm going to prove that to you now. This is a study I did from Joseph Zbukvic, another amazing artist. Okay, that's Zbukvic's painting. This is how long is this video? Oh, it's only 3.5 minutes. So here's me painting Zbukvic's, doing a study from him with this process. Okay, I'm putting in my big shapes. And I'm doing the same thing I showed you with my building. I found some angles. Zbukvic will preach to you about angles if he gets the chance. He loves diagonals. I think he's right. Diagonals seem to have more of a life to them than straights. I don't know if that's true. That's how I feel about it. If you can design diagonals into your scene, it's more interesting, I think. So it's just a process now of putting in medium shapes, which I'm doing here. Obviously, it's sped up, right? These are all medium shapes. And yes, they are inspired by the shadow maybe under the boat or the stuff in the boat. There's a dock there that's coming in, but it's abstract, right? This has not yet turned the corner to literal yet, but it will. Just give it another minute. And you can see at the top what I'm looking at. You are editing the scene to find your abstract statement. So these are small shapes now. And by the way, you don't have to do big, medium, small in order. Like when I paint, big shape, then a few small shapes, a medium shape, 2 medium shapes. Like it's fluid. You bounce back and forth. And it's very freeing, by the way, if any of you have not experienced this yet, it's very freeing when the subject does not dictate your actions. That is a very freeing thing. Yet you still come up with a painting that expresses the subject. That sentence I just said should be, I think, the goal as plein air. The subject does not dictate your actions, yet you can still express the subject. That's when you know you're on the right track, if you feel that way. These are small shapes coming in. And sure, like, again, you're never completely divorced from the literal part. I'm inspired by, and Zbukvic was inspired by the boats, but you pick and choose the shapes you include or don't include based on your abstract decisions. And that's where that exercise I just did for you guys live, please do that. Like take time. It takes 5 minutes. Do 10 of them over a week, 10 different arrangements. And in those arrangements, you'll find what works for you. This is how long left in this? Almost done. Another minute. We've crossed the chasm though. It does look like boats now. It looks like there's reflections. The only thing that separates the study I'm doing here from a finish, not including color, obviously, is time. You just refine shapes. You don't necessarily, you get to a point where your abstract design is good and you simply are refining. You don't always have to be adding. Sometimes you're done adding. Sometimes it's refinement means cleaning up your shapes, making them cut outable, like I said earlier, cleaning up your shapes, or combining shapes. Like maybe you have too many shapes here, you combine them into one, clean that area up a little bit. Because remember, small shapes are busy, they're energetic. You got to be careful where you're putting them. You need areas to breathe. See this big water on the left here that started as that big triangle that I delineated first, which is in the Zbukvic painting? That is a breath of fresh air. That's a place where the audience can rest a little bit. If you just bombard the audience with small shapes everywhere, that doesn't work either. You have to put your small shapes in an arrangement. I can't tell you what that arrangement is. That's your homework. But just another tip of how to build with these shapes. Yeah. So when it comes to attacking a subject, actually, this actually is taken from one of my own YouTube videos. You can watch this if you haven't seen it. It's from about 5 years ago. I saw this street and I specifically liked that. I liked the that particular building with the light slicing through because I felt like that gave me big, medium, and small. So if you look at my painting, this is minutes into the start of my painting. Remember when I said you have to fail or succeed in 5 minutes? That's 5 minutes in. And like, that's the picture. That is the functional part of the picture. It looks like buildings with light and shadow. Great, I'm succeeding. Now I have to build in, like I've got an area to look at, the light versus shadow. Now I build in the abstract part of the picture, and you'll actually find a version of that painting in the sketchbook that's going around. You won't find that, maybe even that exact painting, I can't remember, but there's a version of that painting in the sketchbook that's going around. Just again, I'm not here to promote like products, but this is my for $5.99. No, I don't even know where I got this, but a thumb hole. You need a thumb hole because you want to be able to hold this like this. This one does not have a thumb hole, does it? The other thing you can do is, yeah, this one doesn't, but you know, you can still hold it like that, I guess. I like dry watercolors, and I add gouache to it. I add white gouache to it. If you can see, there's white gouache there. These are watercolors. I just spray water on these to reactivate them. You can do the same with the white gouache. This one is still watercolor, but it's squeezed from tubes. Same thing, spray bottle, reactivate the water, the paint with water, and you're good to go. So palette-wise, something like that. Sketchbook-wise, whatever you're interested in. The sketchbook that's being passed around, one of them is moleskin, which I love. The other one, I sourced the paper myself and just got it bound at a local print shop. I brought them 20 pages and some thick stuff for the cover, and they spiral bound it for me. And I made like 20 of those books. I love, you can, you know, combine papers and it's your own stuff, right? Yeah. You're going to paint, you're going to find the world's going to open up to you when you think this way, because you are going to find interesting designs and subject matter in garbage bags, and you're going to find it everywhere that you would, you know, probably never do. Those are from imagination. Your imagination work will change because you're able to suddenly, because when you're doing plein air, like I've been presenting today, you are just as much a part in the design as the real world is. Suddenly your imagination stuff becomes easier too, because it's just design. You're doing the same thing. There's no difference in these. And again, these are, I specifically wanted to keep my older work. I feel like I could do these better today. These are 2010, I think. I could do those better today, but I feel like this shows my progression in learning from the abstract stuff now to imagination stuff. I used to carry around a Nintendo DS, and these are all Nintendo DS quick sketches, just from imagination. I used to have an hour commute to work and back, so 2 hours every day, and I would just DS sketch on the train. And I have tons of these, you know, and they're all just little abstract designs, because I did that one at a Raptors game, Toronto Raptors basketball. I don't like basketball. There we go. I think I have made it through all I want to show you, and we are 2 minutes shy. I did it. Thank you guys. Thank you so much.